All right, we're moving on. We're up to number 70, a movie that I know you all love. More recent film, Shaun of the Dead. It is, it's hard for me, and I'm being completely serious here. It is hard for me to think of a better zombie movie than Shaun of the Dead. And I mean that. And it's ironic. It's a kind of a spoof of zombie movies, but I think it's the best zombie movie ever made. I think it's better than Night of the Living Dead, which is a great movie. Dawn of the Dead, which is a great movie. All the zombie movies, they're great. There's a lot of great zombie movies. This is so good, not only as a comedy, which is obviously what it's supposed to be, it's also good as a straight up horror zombie movie. Um, Simon Pegg, Nick Frost, Edgar Wright. This was the movie that it didn't kick off their relationship. They'd done Spaced together before on TV. This is though the movie that introduced me to them, and I have watched everything they've done from Spaced to Paul, which was just completely criminally underrated. Um, Great comic team, and I look forward to seeing them do more in the future. Now we're going to move up to number 69, a true classic, Network. Network, this is maybe one of the ballsiest movies ever made. I mean, this movie's got guts. Um, what was so awesome about it was that it was a movie that looked out into the audience and said, "What are you doing? Sitting here on your ass. There's work to be done out there. Go do it." Um, get up out of this theater. Stop watching this movie and go do something important with your life. And it sort of dared people to do that. Um, there's the obvious. I mean, you can't talk about it without mentioning, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. That motto, it's so filled with both anger and complete and total impotence that it's really kind of it's tragic, and it really makes you feel like there's nothing that can be done, that the machine is just going to keep grinding you down, and even when you try to stand up for what's right, the machine is somehow going to take what you're doing and corrupt it. And obviously the machine in this case is television, but I think it obviously stands in for just about anything going on in corporate America. We're going to move up to number 68. This is another underrated classic. This one, I don't understand how this is not a more classic movie. I've mentioned a few movies like Bent, Open Range, Last Temptation of Christ that are sort of forgotten or they never found an audience. This one, though, a lot of you won't have ever heard of it, and you should have. It's a great movie. Elia Kazan's A Face in the Crowd. Believe it or not, starring Andy Griffith in the role of Lonesome Rhodes. Um, this is a prophetic movie. It came out in the 50s, and yet you would swear that Andy Griffith in this movie is playing Glenn Beck. I mean, it's amazing how prophetic this movie is. The idea of a person who becomes a celebrity and then influences the country in a negative way, and can take the country into different directions through a television program. It was so ahead of its time that people, I think, back then didn't buy it. I think people back then looked at it and went, this could never happen. You watch it today and you watch it with just completely new eyes, new because we're living it. We're living this movie now, and really, I know most of you probably haven't heard of it. Go check it out. It is an amazing film. Number 67, we have One that was underrated at the time, I think it's a little bit more better regarded now. Pleasantville. This is one of those movies that I think people just sort of went, oh, it's. There'd been movies like Pleasantville before. In the early '90s, there was a movie called Stay Tuned with John Ritter in it, where he and his wife get sucked into the TV, um, and it was played off as a goofy comedy. You know, they go to different TV channels, and I think most people thought that's what Pleasantville was going to be. It was just going to be this goofy comedy. It is the most biting satire of uh, taking what was so idealized and is so idealized still, the 1950s of America, and showing it for what it was, a time when if you weren't completely, uh, um, if you weren't a conformist, if you didn't fit into what was the status quo, you would be ostracized completely from society. And really, if you weren't white and privileged, then you weren't anybody. And Pleasantville does it in this really interesting way of, two teenagers from the 90s getting sucked into a 1950s sitcom and slowly starting to affect it to where everything in the black and white world starts to turn color. And then the establishment of that sitcom world reacting by having signs out that say no coloreds, in the stores and stuff. I mean, it's really just a really deep film, and so much more than what a lot of people would have thought it was. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Another one, another classic film now, number 66, Dog Day Afternoon, Al Pacino. Fucking love Pacino, okay? Pacino is fucking awesome, all right? You can't, I'd be hard pressed to say maybe Dustin Hoffman is would be maybe an actor of mine that I respect more. But Pacino is so awesome. This is one of his best performances in a true story, a astonishingly true story about this guy who robs a bank and it turns into a hostage situation. But he's robbing the bank to get money to fund uh, his gay lover's sex change operation, and he's actually married to another woman, and they have kids, and it's just this crazy movie um, that where everything spirals out of control for this character, and it is so funny, and it is so sad, and it is exciting, and it's just a great film, and the kind of movies that they made back in the '70s that they don't make anymore. These sort of character-driven, actor-driven movies where you they're rebels and they do these horrible things, but you sympathize with them. It's a great film, one of the best bank robbery movies ever made. Go check it out. Number 65, another classic. This list is gonna be heavy with sort of classic movies, and that is Doctor Strangelove, Stanley Kubrick's best movie. Never could entirely get into 2001: A Space Odyssey. I've watched it, so I hated it the first time I saw it. I've watched it several times since. I can appreciate it now, but I don't think when it comes to just Kubrick at his best, it is all the way Strangelove. Um, Peter Sellers in a just amazing triple performance, um, and just the again, another movie that's a satire like Shaun of the Dead, and yet it's the best movie made, I think, about the behind the scenes of war and what goes into war. And sadly, from what has been said since the Cold War ended, this movie is actually kind of close to being what reality was during the Cold War, behind the scenes of the Cold War. Um, and it's got my favorite line in a movie. My favorite line in any movie. Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room. That is the funniest thing that has ever been said by anybody ever. Forever. In all time, in all history, that's the funniest thing. Um, Number 64, Another classic, Taxi Driver. De Niro's best performance. De Niro, another great actor. You wouldn't think so if you were born in like 1994 and all you've seen are Meet the Parents and stuff like that. De Niro is a great actor who has remarkable range, and Taxi Driver is his best performance. It's iconic, but at the same time, it's one of those roles that everybody does. You talking to me? You talking to me? Everybody does that. But when you see it in context, it's terrifying. This guy who's just completely unhinged, this guy who is likely to kill you as soon as look at you, and but he thinks he's a hero, and he's so delusional, and he's just oh, I mean, there's so much to. I don't want to spoil the movie either, because you have to experience it. It is a descent into hell. So if you haven't seen that movie, go watch it. All right, we're moving up. This one's not considered a classic, but it should be. It is a great action movie. Desperado. Fuck yeah, Desperado. All right. First of all, Selma Hayek's hot. Has a woman ever been hotter than Selma Hayek in Desperado? No, they haven't. That said, this is an action movie that takes chances. This is an action movie that, is so over the top, and yet it dares to actually do something other than a white guy, in an urban setting. It's Antonio Banderas in Mexico, and there's so much audacity and flair to this movie. And you can't even the character has no name. The lead character, the mariachi. It's a combination of like Sergio Leone and this just over the top crazy action that only Robert Rodriguez can do. Most of you have probably seen it. It's a great movie. Check it out. Okay, I said that we're gonna do ties for franchise movies, and we're gonna do a tie for this. 6 movies in the franchise, but I'm only doing the bookends here, and that is Rocky and Rocky Balboa. And I'm gonna get shit for this. Rocky Balboa is the better movie. I fucking love these 2 movies, but Rocky Balboa, to me, it's the better movie. Stallone gives the better performance in it. It's proof that Stallone can still act, that Stallone is a hell of a filmmaker. The best sports movies ever made are Rocky and Rocky Balboa. These are classic, a classic and an underrated sequel. You all know the story. Stallone getting the chance to become a champ. All the movies in between the sequels, 2, 3, 4, and 5, are okay. I know a lot of you have affection for 4. I didn't like it when Rocky became a superhero in like 3 and 4. The first movie and the last movie are both great films. Highly recommend them. We're going to finish out this list with a movie that is not really as highly regarded, and I don't understand why. It's a great movie. It deserves more affection than it gets, and that is The Fountain with Hugh Jackman, a Darren Aronofsky movie. Darren Aronofsky's best movie. Better than Black Swan, better than The Wrestler. The Fountain is a great film. It's a romance, it's science fiction, it's surreal. I couldn't even begin to explain the plot to you. It took me several viewings to even understand the plot of The Fountain, but it is just a beautiful visual experience. That's something that's really underrated. You have to sometimes just watch a movie for the visual experience, and the performances are great. It's one of my kids' favorite movies. A lot of people say they don't understand it. I get that it's complicated, but I didn't feel it was completely baffling to where I was completely lost through the whole movie. It took me a couple of times to go, oh, that's what's going on there. But I'm not even going to try to explain the plot. I will just say it takes place in 3 different time periods, sort of. Go check it out. It's a great date movie. if you want to just stay in and watch a date movie with your girlfriend.